to introduce Karen. Karen Davis is a really amazing friend of the Lung Association, and we've been good friends for a long time. And so she's actually spent more than 32 years serving as a lung health advocate, donor, and volunteer to the Lung Association, most recently as a chair on our board, and recently retired from the board. And so I don't think you got to meet Mona yet, but I'm so glad to have you with us tonight. She has 30 years of experience as a clinical dietitian and an educator, and is currently a dietitian for the Saskatchewan Health Authority, where she provides a really unique and expert perspective to lung health with her nutrition background and managing people who have chronic lung disease. So really happy to have her here tonight, and I'll just pass it over to you, Karen. And just so you know, this is a confidential space, of course, and everything you say here will be kept confidential and nothing is to be shared outside of this group. So yeah, excited to hear from you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jamie, and welcome everyone. Good evening to all of you, and very privileged, very honored to have been invited. And thank you for that very warm introduction. It's always a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak to all of you. It's been quite a long year and more for all of us, actually, filled with many challenging times, but also, some opportunities that have allowed us to do and think in new ways and do things. So it's been sort of half and half on a lot of things. I want to thank all of the participants who have joined tonight and the healthcare professionals that have also joined. Without your support, without your involvement, certainly it makes it more difficult to help people. So your voice is so important in all of this, and it helps to keep all of these different sessions successful and certainly valuable to our community and our lung family, and also helps us to each breathe a little bit easier. So I thank all of you for coming tonight. So I'm going to share my presentation here. So just half a second. Share my screen so I can get that up. Oh. All right. There we go. I think that is it. Okay. So I'm not sure, I don't see any of you now, so I'll have to rely on Jamie to help if there's any, with any kind of hands up as we move through it. So I'd like to start, and I always, a most important message for me in the forefront, basically from the top to the bottom of my lungs, is our mission, and that is improving lung health one breath at a time. So important to all of us, and I'm really very proud to be part of the lung family. I acknowledge my presence on Treaty 6 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, as well as the territory of the Métis. I acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps I have marked these lands for generations. So we're going to start off the presentation this evening and just talking about eating well, talking about nutrition and diet. Does it matter? Choosing those healthy nutrition foods to help with lung conditions. We're going to focus on pulmonary fibrosis and COPD tonight, but nutrition is important for all bodies, all sizes, all of us. And there's various approaches that we can take. So the important part is that we will focus in on managing some of the key points when you're short of breath, when there's fatigue or some loss of appetite, and some tips to help guide you along with that. Talk a little bit about food trends, just where you get your information and reliable source of information. And I know that Jamie will be posting some resources at the end of the session on the website. So she'll be able to support that for you. And then also, we'll start off by each of you just taking a deep breath, and then off we go through the beautiful trees and walkway, and off to a journey to enjoy the garden path of eating well and living well as well. So this sort of is a bit, I really appreciate nature, and I think it helps to calm and recenter, and it really helps to guide a lot of the thinking that we do, and where our food comes from, and how we can support that. So it's important in that sense. So we'll get started by just talking about, does nutrition matter? So what we eat, what we choose to eat, does make a difference, and it does contribute to overall health. And no one food can provide all nutrients we need. So the message is really powerful. The diet is such a huge part of having an impact and managing your condition. There is no one magical food to provide all the nutrients, or not one magical pill to help provide those nutrients we need. But also maintaining eating well helps to keep the immune system strong as well. And also helps to protect our lungs from infections and help our breathing. And that's really sort of those key pieces there. So how do we do this? How do we end up having to eat well and live well? And how do we achieve that in our day? When we look at it, quality and quantity of food you choose is important. And, you use the healthy plate, or use a plate to build and keep your portions on target. I guess sometimes it's the size of the plate that you have that can make a difference. I know many clients that I have, they sometimes bring their plates to me, and then they say, which is sort of the right size? And you look at, well, this one probably be good for lunch, this one would be good for dinner, and this one for snacks. And then some of them are exceptionally large, that some of them we have to put in different cupboards in our kitchen. But we're trying to aim for the target where half of your plate, as you can see, is filled with vegetables, and a quarter of your plate with protein foods, and then the other quarter of your plate with whole grains, and then of course a side for milk and some fruit. What I want to focus on is actually in each of these different groups, how do these food groups help our lungs to stay healthy? And that's the important part that we need to connect to make it feel important. So what? And why do we need to have these foods? So we look at some protein foods. It's that building block of muscles. And so protein helps to maintain our muscle mass and keeps your muscles strong. And that includes your chest muscles that help your ribs to expand as you breathe. So this will help you to keep strong during your exercise and all of your pulmonary rehab that you are doing. But it also is important to power your immune system. So we really encourage to make sure that you do have proteins. We're going to look at the kind of protein that you have, though, because there's certain types that are probably more encouraging that we want to support. And those are more of your lean meats, fish, and eggs, lentils, all those that will really give us some extra protein sources there. The grains certainly help to give you that body energy for breathing and for your everyday tasks, and that's important. Choosing high fiber or whole grain versions like brown pastas and rice or whole wheat breads, they'll keep you full just a little bit longer, and also protect your heart and keep kind of your intestine regular. So those are always more helpful. The fruits and vegetables, where we have half of our plate, really keep those vitamins and minerals and that support your immune system to help fight off infections. And they also have fiber in them, and also some antioxidants, some really strong support systems to keep your lungs healthy. The dairy foods, dairy is a good source of proteins and also minerals, particularly calcium and vitamin D. And we know that's really, really helpful for strong bones. And it helps to also, if people are on steroids for a long, long period of time, it's important to maintain good calcium levels and also to have vitamin D to help support. Those oils and fats, we talk about, containing also like vitamin A and vitamin E, which are also helpful to help support and fight off infections. So we do include them in our day each time. I do have a separate slide on on fluids. So I will address that a little bit later. So Canada's Food Guide is our go-to here. It has just been revised not that long ago, and it really does support plant proteins, and it really does support healthy options, low processed meats, foods that are lower in sodium, and also a generous intake of vegetables and fruits. There are some other dietary healthy patterns that you may consider, and some of those have had some very valuable support. And one of them is Mediterranean diet. And the Mediterranean diet, whoops, sorry, my thing slipped there. The Mediterranean diet is a pattern that really emphasizes fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and whole grains and legumes and fish, and even a little bit of red wine in moderation. So the structure of these diet patterns can really help make some healthy choices, and a dietitian can help you plan the details around it. And now, since we have a couple of the dietitians on our call tonight, they would really welcome having you to be referred to them and to be able to help support some of those details. The Mediterranean diet is also known to help reduce inflammation that's really common with chronic diseases. So it is a diet that's also been supported in, if someone has another condition that they have at the same time with their lung condition, if there's something going on with their cholesterol values and other blood fats are just not in check, the Mediterranean one really helps to guide and structure those pieces. The DASH diet is also one that you may have heard of, and that pattern really reduces, and it's been validated by the Canadian Hypertension Society. So it is one that helps to reduce high blood pressure. So it is called, DASH means, dietary approaches to stop hypertension. So traditionally, it's not a low salt diet, but the eating plan is naturally lower in salt because of the abundance of servings of vegetables and fruits that are there. So the focus is more on getting those minerals and potassium and calcium and magnesium more from food sources, and really focuses on reducing packaged and processed foods and high salt snacks as well. So someone who's needing to monitor their blood pressure, and a lot of the pulmonary fibrosis patients really need to look at, what kinds of foods are they having that might be higher in sodium. So some of these patterns might be of assistance to help guide that process. Following a lower pattern of sodium foods is healthy for everyone. It isn't just for people that do have lung conditions. So it's really exciting where these eating patterns really just support a healthier weight. So whether you're using Canada's Food Guide, and Canada's Food Guide is one that, supports all of the similar principles, but it also really helps to guide some of those daily things that you would do, like cooking more often, taking time to enjoy meals, and just making more informed choices and being aware of some of the food marketing. So it is one there's a lot of information on, and on the website, that a link that I've provided, using Canada's food guide is really supported because it has links to helping you with your meal planning. It has links to help you support with different foods. It has recipe sections, and also through Dietitians of Canada, it also helps, it's called unlockfood.ca, and it really helps with your menu planning. And it will actually help guide you through planning a meal day for your day and for your week. It helps you with some of your grocery lists and what kinds of things you might need to purchase. So it's a really good way of getting started on a variety of different things. The one key thing I think I would like to remind you of is when you're looking at making some changes in your day, keep it gradual. Take a look at what you're having in your day and maybe just take it one meal at a time, or maybe one item at a meal, or one or two items in your day, and just kind of see and just keep transitioning into including some of these healthier options. I think you'll find that overall, you find that there may be times of your day that you're just not as hungry as you thought you would be. You feel that you have better satiation, which means that you're more full, you don't get as hungry, you don't feel like you're craving as many different foods. So it really helps to create that better sense of balance. And you'll find that that will be something that is really valuable as you're spending more time at home and as you're trying to incorporate activity and other kinds of things in your days. You'll find that it will help overall. So really, 3 really good healthy meal plans here. There are others as well, but it's ones that you could probably speak to, a healthcare professional or dietitian to help support. Sometimes we find the challenge is real in terms of some barriers for being able to do the things we want to do or eat the foods that we really want to eat. Literature does, and there's evidence that is supporting that many patients with lung disease actually often are not meeting their nutrient intakes. So sometimes earlier in the disease, we find that it's maybe not as much of a concern, but as the years go on, certainly their energy that's required is more, as sometimes when our breathing becomes more challenging. So it's important to keep that nutrition in check and healthy in terms of how much you're eating and what you're eating. When we're breathing, we may be needing anywhere like 10% more energy, sometimes 15%. And in some situations, when the disease has been on for a long time, you may even need like 25% more of your calories. So many people are unable to meet that, but there are strategies and ways that we can. So what often does happen is if we're not meeting those nutrients, we find that we're not as strong. So our muscles are not as strong. So that sort of helps to clue into why it may be important to include some of those foods in your day. So I'm going to share my screen again and continue on with the presentation. I think it should start up right away. Okay, move on to the next. Okay, so if you're looking at how would I know if my eating habits, we sort of talk a little bit of why it's important to have healthy foods, why it's important to kind of include those different food groups in our day. So how are we going to know? And we talk about, referral to a dietitian. And sometimes you're sort of curious at the beginning in terms of like, how well am I actually doing? How well can I fit in my day the foods that I need? So this eating habits survey is called Nutra eScreen. It can be done. You can do it yourself at home. Your family can do it as well. And this questionnaire really helps to find out how well you're doing in choosing foods that help you to stay healthy and help you to stay active. So it's a series of about 14 short questions about your eating habits. It only takes about 10 minutes or maybe a little bit less or longer. And it's interesting because as you will answer the question, it really talks about things that you're doing well and maybe areas that you might be able to improve. and then maybe some steps that you can take to help improve those eating habits. At the beginning, it asks you a little bit about yourself. So don't be afraid about answering, 2 or 3 questions about a little bit about you, and then to complete all the questions. And when you're finished, it gives you the results. And then it links you to even more resources to help you find some other nutritional sources. So it's really helpful for that area. There's also links that you can take from that website. And then there's also other additional links that will be provided for you at the end of the session. There's oftentimes challenging times when you have a more difficult time breathing is swallowing. Sometimes eating makes you cough. Sometimes it makes you have more difficult time when you're chewing food or swallowing it, which makes us a little more hesitant because then we're unsure of what kind of food that we should eat. So, and then it changes our appetite. Maybe we're not as interested in it anymore. Some of you, have family and partners that you're living with, and in some situations you may be living alone. So, when you are taking a check on, being able to get out and get your groceries and shop, and if you have someone that could help support that to make sure that you can get the nutrients there. So those are kind of key things to just to tweak your mind about and ask some questions. So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about, why am I not feeling hungry? And I'm going to focus on a little bit of the shortness of breath at meals. There's days you may not feel up to eating because of the shortness of breath. Also, it can be caused by a loss of appetite, which can lead to unplanned weight loss. And with unplanned weight loss, that's when you start losing some of your muscle mass. And when you start losing that muscle mass, then you lose more strength to be able to do all of the things you want to do in your day. And that's, functional things that even, getting dressed, or you may find the functional things of going for a walk or spending time with family. Being tired is often a common one that patients talk to us about, that they're really not feeling hungry because they're just too tired to eat, or their mouth is really dry, and what is it that they can do to help that? So when you are short of breath, what are sort of the key things that are helpful? And when we're looking at this, when you have COPD or pulmonary fibrosis, your body works a lot harder to breathe. So feeling tired and shortness of breath is not uncommon at meal times. Often when you have a flare-up as well, that air and food are fighting for space to meet your daily calorie needs. So it can be really frustrating to try and spend time and get enough nutrients in your day. So some of those tips are, if you rest before eating, take your time at mealtime, eat and chew slowly so you're less likely to become short of breath. Try putting your fork down in between bites to slow down your eating a little bit. Taking smaller mouthfuls, and make sure that you do be able to chew and swallow it before you take additional mouthfuls. Eating smaller meals and including snacks really maximizes your nutrition and the choices you have. So sometimes 3 meals a day if you start your day, breakfast and a lunch and a supper, and then even 3 or 4 snacks can really help. A full stomach can really interfere with your breathing because it pushes up on your diaphragm, so it makes it far more uncomfortable. So that's the reason why the smaller meals and snacks really can be helpful. Chewing and swallowing may be more difficult, so sometimes softer foods are easier to manage, and when you're short of breath, it just makes it that much easier. Preparing food on energetic days, and we have many of those, and then other days are not as energetic. So it's nice to have some extra foods frozen in the freezer and have some ready-made meals there, which are really, really handy to have. And also using your bronchodilator before a meal can be helpful too. So when your appetite is poor, that sort of goes along with the same lines. When you poor appetite, then often I have had many of the people that I've seen really start skipping meals, and then that also leads to weight that they didn't intend to lose. So again, it goes along the same line of eating smaller and frequent meals and snacks, including a variety of foods, just to help see what you might like. Some days you prepare something, and by the time you prepare it, you don't really feel like eating it. And so having a couple of choices sometimes is really helpful. Selecting energy and protein-rich foods is really helpful to get more nourishment that you need, and for energy, and they're rich in muscle-building protein. So that when your appetite's poor, and if you start losing the weight that you didn't intend to lose, then the loss of muscle mass, or the weakening of muscles that you might use to breathe, becomes more challenging. So actually, current research into muscle mass with age certainly goes along with how strong your muscles can be. And we can help to manage and strengthen along with those lifestyle interventions. So, you know, the pulmonary rehab program, where you do have a lot of those skills, are there. And then also the healthy eating goes along with that. So try to eat more when your appetite is best. And sometimes that's early in the morning and early part of your day. And then sometimes people find that by the evening, it just sort of wanes off a little bit. And then sipping on beverages during meals, and drink most of beverages at the end of a meal or in between meals. If you are drinking 1 or 2 glasses of water before your meal, if you are trying to minimize the full amount of food, and you're looking at a very different goal and a very different lifestyle intervention than trying to keep your energy up, then we find that people will drink more before their meal, particularly earlier in their disease, because they're trying to manage and be healthier in their selections, and it helps to manage their portion at their meal time just a little bit easier. But if appetite is poor, it's easier to just wait and have food first to get the nutrients and the nourishment from the food that you're eating, and then just have sips of beverages so it doesn't fill you up too quickly. And even considering an oral nutrition supplement, and that can be done as well. You can make a homemade supplement if you like, or, you know, there are some that you can, commercial ones that are available that you can use. Your dietitian can help support which ones might be best suitable for you. There's many on the market today. But it does help that when you're not able to prepare a full meal, that oral nutrition supplement can actually be taken as part of a meal, or at the end of the amount that you're able to eat in solid foods, or it can be in between meal times to help get the nutrients that you need in your day. And keeping mealtime interesting, keeping it enjoyable, adding some different flavors, using a lot of different seasonings or spices, or trying something that's maybe a little bit of a stretch goal for you. You think, oh yeah, I kind of like that. I may have to try that again. And rather than sort of keeping the same thing every day. And I think with us being at home, it's been interesting because there's so many more people cooking now, and they have been trying to keep their meals a bit more interesting. But I think the bottom line is keeping the meals simple. It doesn't have to, you don't have to spend all afternoon or all morning cooking. Trying to keep it as simple as possible is the easiest. And then it keeps you motivated to keep cooking more at home. So when you're trying to energize, you're trying to improve your intake, choose some of those full fat or high energy options. which are really easier to consume when you are having it at meal times. Adding grated cheese or sauces to casseroles and soups or eggs, potatoes, or sandwiches, you can do that. You can add full milk, full dairy products that you could use to make the sauces, and that makes it just that much easier to get the extra nutrients that you need. Limit foods labeled sugar-free or low-fat if you are trying to have a very poor appetite and you're not eating as much and you're concerned about that additional unintentional weight loss where you didn't mean to lose the weight, it just seems to be happening, then this isn't the time to have things that are sugar-free or low-fat. You want to make sure, encourage having the regular meals. And then again, choosing those nourishing drinks and beverages. So when you're tired, we need to try and energize, trying again to eat those small meals more often. Keeping a routine for meals is really fun and more important. If otherwise we can get up in the morning and all of a sudden we get busy doing all these other things in the day, and all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock or 11:30 and we haven't had one thing to eat or to drink. So keeping that routine is really helpful to get all the nutrients that you need in the day. Starting off with a breakfast, starting off with something early in the morning really helps to make sure that you can get all the food that you need in a day, rather than starting at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then trying to fit all of those foods in your day. By the evening, you're too tired to eat them, or you're just too full that you can't get them all in. Include your favorites more often. That sometimes even helps to energize you. And then even connecting with your healthcare providers if you're needing some support, and keeping in touch with family and friends. And that really does help. It helps to remotivate, helps to get energized. So often the question that we get is, okay, for many people who are feeling fine about their weight and they want to continue to keep healthy. And on one hand, we're trying to say, okay, encourage more full fat items. And on the other hand, not to have them quite as often. So it's a tough balance. It's hard to kind of decide when are you going to have what. And if we're trying to gain weight, keeping healthy on that higher calorie choices is often a question that people do ask. Because how do we try to stay on that, keeping our blood fats in good check, keeping our sugars in good check? Those are important questions that everybody has, particularly if you're dealing with not only one condition, but you're dealing with another one or two conditions. So one of the key points is that, limiting processed foods is one of the things that is really the key, because often the processed food tends to be a little bit higher in fat choices. Having more whole grains to maintain that source of energy. So oatmeal or muesli or whole grain breads to keep, your heart really more healthy. And then also looking at the lean choices of meat and proteins. And that also helps to encourage the use of lentils or pulses or beans. They're very impactful and make a difference on your healthy levels when you get your blood checked. They're easier to cook too, and they're easy to prepare, particularly if you maybe have a cooker at home that you can speed up the process cooking, or you can just throw everything in a pot for a casserole or a soup and just add some of the lentils. They give you a lot more nutrients and supply the energy that you would need and the protein that you need in your day. So then even on the dairy products, looking at, adding maybe like milk or milk powder to your foods, because that will help to build up, and add more protein and calcium without the added fats. So even to a glass of milk, if you wanted to boost up the energy and boost up the protein, you can add 2 tablespoons of milk powder to it and chill it as you would, and then drink it like regular milk. Or if you can use it for soups, you can use it for casseroles, you can use it for puddings, you can do it with a variety of different ways. And when you're looking some extra fats and sugars, it doesn't mean that we pile on a lot of the extra fats. I think what we're trying to do is, when you're having higher calorie choices, it's the type of fat that you're using. The amount does matter, but the fats and sugars that promote weight gain are some of the ones that are really excessively unhealthy options. So having the healthier fat options would be, like instead of using large or excessive amounts of butter, then you could use, other oils like olive oil is a healthy option. And that's what they often use in the other diets. But there's also others as well. When your mouth is dry, keeping well hydrated is certainly key. You're aiming to drink about, 6 to 8 cups of fluid in your day. What's really a handy tip is to keep a bottle or a glass nearby. I think keeping well hydrated really helps to keep your secretions and your mucus moving. So if mucus just sits in your airways and lungs, you're more likely to get an infection. And so being well hydrated can not only help that, but it also can prevent the headaches and dizziness, fainting or constipation as well. So sometimes inhalers, or if you're on oxygen, that can sometimes cause a dry mouth, so it can make it more difficult to chew and swallow foods. And then it affects taste changes as well. So starting that day with a glass or a cup of water is helpful. And, if you have hot water, that's fine too. You can put hot water with a bit of lemon in it and have a cup or two of that prior to you having your other beverage that you might of your choice for your breakfast. Or some people just like a glass of cold water. So it is your choice, and it does not matter. Flavoring it with lemon, berries, or mint is helpful. And also when you're choosing more moist or softer foods, I think a question came by on if you're on a fluid restricted, I think keeping more moist and softer foods really helps. Even if you're sucking on, tiny little ice cubes, or really I know they have little tiny ice cube patients that you can make, which is really helpful. Sometimes they talk about tiny little mints, and that sort is really helpful too. And you can get applications for mouth care, and you can also really get supported well by good dental care as well. Making sure that is helpful, because that really keeps your mouth feeling just a little bit fresher. Acid reflux is one other common question that we get from many patients. It's called GERD. It's common with COPD, and it's common with pulmonary fibrosis. And it's described as that backflow of acid from the stomach right up in the esophagus. And some symptoms of GERD, some people have heartburn when they're swallowing. It's kind of regurgitation of the food. And it's often painful when you're swallowing as well. It can contribute to flare-ups. And so that combination of coughing, all of that little aspiration that you get of the gastric contents, and the bronchospasm that can occur, can really increase that abdominal pressure, and that really does increase symptoms for you. So there are things that you can do to help. There's other people that say, oh, I have GERD, but it really doesn't bother me that much. But the acid for some can really cause, throat irritation, sort of that post-nasal drip, or hoarseness, or just even feeling like your chest is congested. So it can really cause some challenging symptoms for you. So some of the things that can really help is that eating slowly, chewing your foods thoroughly is helpful. Eating smaller, more frequent meals. Maintaining a healthy weight is really helpful because then there's just a little bit less pressure, particularly in the abdominal area. So that's helpful. Some of the foods that can worsen symptoms are things like very high fat foods or very spicy foods, citrus foods, caffeine, even chocolate, and carbonated beverages can really cause a lot more GERD. So people that are trying to include, a lot of the soda waters and things like that, which are great, but that really can start causing some challenges to make the GERD worse. Some other suggestions that might be helpful for you is to avoid laying down after meals for at least about 2 hours. Try not to have a big meal 2 or 3 hours before bedtime. And some people actually don't have anything to eat at least 2 hours before bedtime. That's helpful. Tight-fitting clothes can really make you feel more uncomfortable. But also, elevating the head of the bed or the mattresses can be helpful too. But working together with your physician and your nurse and your dietitian to help you with your GERD is really, really good. So staying healthy during the pandemic, here we go. We've been living through this in a long time. There's a lot of different resources that are available for managing and staying healthy during the pandemic. And so we really are trying to eat well to keep that energy up, to keep the immune system strong, and the vitamins and minerals to help you during this challenging time. So how can you stay healthy? I think a lot of it is going back to those the eating patterns that we talked about in each of the areas. But also one of the strongest tips is to stock up on some nutrition-packed foods that last a little bit longer. So stocking up on some of those basic staples. So you might have some extra frozen vegetables, you might have some dried or canned pulses, you might have some additional breads and other things that you can purchase and keep in your freezer, dried fruits and nuts and seeds, eggs, and then canned fish and vegetables. Usually they do have a longer shelf life, freezer life, and also kept in your fridge. They usually have a best before date there. So I think one of the more practical things I like to tell everyone is, I know everyone likes to stock up on all these extra things, but making sure that you're buying foods that you're actually going to use. And also store and cook them according to the manufacturer's instructions. Because if you run out of room for something in your fridge and then you put it on your counter, and it's supposed to be refrigerated, and you think, it's just in a can or it's just in a jar and it shouldn't matter, but it can get spoiled. So do store it according to the manufacturer's instructions. And then check dates of foods in cupboards and fridge regularly. You'll be amazed what you find in there if you don't, go through it and clean things out a little bit more often. So we're looking at, kind of those food trends, what's sort of trendy on things. And there's so many changes in the food industry and ever evolving nature of COVID and the pandemic, and so an overwhelming amount of information on the internet and claims in the media, so many promising cures and things that will keep you well. We've had a lot of advancements, in knowing, which the whole foods and the plant-based foods and how they really are healthy and for us. But I think other times are to watch for those magic solutions or quick fixes where they say, oh yeah, just, try this and you'll feel better in a day. And when you're on a multitude and a few other medications, it's always good to check with someone, whether you check with your pharmacist, whether you check with your doctor, your nurse and dietitian. Try to make sure that what you are taking, if you want to try something that is a little advertised, making sure that it is from a trusted source of information, but also that it is going to fit into your healthcare plan, because that's important. Because sometimes things that might be advertised as being, important and make you feel better may actually contradict with the medications that you're taking. So those promises or claims for ingredients or products is not suitable for everybody. So those are something that that is a key. We have had a lot of shifts in food trends, and I think a lot of them have been for the good in terms of some of the whole foods, buying local, making sure that you're increasing your what your plate looks like to make it suitable to meet the nutrients in your day. So a lot of really alternatives that have been healthy options, but beware, buyer beware, I guess, on some of these other claims. The other thing is spicing it up. That's always a challenge. You may have heard that some spices have more magical powers than others, like the polyphenols, and help manage blood pressure and promote good circulation and decrease inflammation. And, having some extra things like dark chocolate and curcuma, that active ingredient in turmeric. So sometimes, again, checking with one of the healthcare providers, to make sure that any of these taken in small amounts in cooking is not a problem. But when people start taking them in larger amounts, in doses in pills and so forth, that it can really be a bit more, could be potentially damaging. So when you're looking at flavoring foods and you're looking at flavoring things, all of those spices can really enhance the meal and can really provide a lot of additional nutrients and a lot of additional interest and motivation to eat and get nutrients that you need. So are there any foods that make breathing difficult? I think sometimes the stronger, gassier foods, the stronger vegetable foods, certain times of your day, or sometimes during how you've just actually been feeling, or whether you've just been in hospital, or whether you've just had a flare up. Sometimes the things just don't feel right. And so those kinds of foods are often maybe just limited to a smaller amount until you can start feeling better, but you don't need to avoid them 100%. Ask for help from family and friends. There'll be help to get you shopping, help to get some groceries, getting together, with a smaller group. I know now it's a bit more challenging with COVID, but you can always have one or two of your bubble of extra friends or family over, and you may find that will really ease a lot of the extra help. Food boxes are really popular, where all the ingredients are supplied. One recipe can, have 2 or 4 meals. And that's really helpful, because then all you need to do is open the box and the ingredients are all measured out, and all you have to do is just put them in the pan and cook them. There are some additional sauces that come with them, and you can choose to use them or not. They do add some flavor, or you may not use all of the sauces that come with it. So they can be really helpful. There's some awesome, really good food boxes in communities. I did include the CHEP Good Food Inc. from Saskatoon and from Regina. Reach Regina has a really excellent program as well. And then some of the other local areas, like I see there's some people here from Prince Albert. And there's a lot of really good local support systems there. And ask your healthcare provider to help actually hook you in with some of these resources, and your dietitian can help with that as well, to just provide some of the areas that you could get some of the local foods that would be really supportive. Okay, so that ends this part of the presentation. I hope it's inspired you. I hope it's given you some ideas. I think the one thing is just to be determined and persistent and brave, and most of all trusting, in your healthcare team to help you and to navigate you through some of these challenging times and help you. Don't be afraid to reach out. Everybody's voice is important, and everybody is really is interested to hear how we can help to make your life a little bit better.